Sonia had a new loom. She'd strung the warp, taut vertical lines of coarse thread that striped the distant horizon and the lightning expanse of the sky. Seen through the warp, the rolling hills and endless grass of the southern plains did not look fractured, but rather like a promise of the weaving to come. As she did with every new weaving, Sonia had sighted the loom so that the weaver and the unadorned warp faced east, to catch the rising of Mother Sun. Tess Soerensen watched as the sun rose, splintering its glory into the yarn. The grass turned gold. A wandering river, twisting and turning through the land like a child's careless loops, flooded with gold briefly, before shading to a humbler tone of murky blue. In the distance, a solitary rider approached camp at a gallop, eerie for the sight, as yet untouched with sound. The quiet that permeated these vast plains was in itself a kind of sound, a note of expectation combined with a deep, abiding peace. Although, Tess reflected, perhaps what people heard as peace was only nature's monumental indifference to the tides of history that rose and fell on its shores. Sonia poured a cupful of milk onto the ground and threw a handful of earth into the air, where the wind caught it for an instant before it sprayed in 100 hissing droplets into the grass. Then she took her shuttle out of its case and knelt to begin the weaving. Tess sat beside her, helping when necessary. "In the long ago time," Sonia began, telling a story to help pass the time as she threaded the weft through the warp, beating it down. "A pregnant woman began to weave a blanket for her unborn child, and as she wove, she pulled down threads of moonlight and sunlight, threads of the wind and threads of river, water, and of earth, and patterned the blanket as her child's life, as she wanted her child's life to become. But soon enough she was no longer content just to weave the new child's life, but began to weave the lives of all of her children and of her husband and her sisters and mother and father and aunts and uncles, and at last of her entire tribe. And because such a blanket can never be finished, the child could not be born." Tess listened distractedly. In the end, after many trials, the weaver's ancient grandmother had to unravel the weaving for her, and thus was the child delivered to live its own life. Tess felt like that weaver. With a net of invisible threads, she wove the destiny of the Jaran. Her loom had no substance, except perhaps for the implant embedded in her cranium that allowed her access to a vast network of information and structural ramparts on which and out of which she could build the matrix, weave the pattern that had become her task. Her warp, strong and straight, was the tribe.